In this video, we will look at strategies on how to be a successful test taker. Examinations, where you endeavor to demonstrate what you know while they conspire to find out what you don't. Winston S. Churchill. Examinations are an integral part of every college course. They measure your understanding and retention of important course material. In order for you to successfully demonstrate your acquired knowledge, it is important that you know how to prepare effectively for your exams. Exam preparation does not begin the day or the week before an exam. Exam prep is an ongoing process which takes place throughout the semester. Preparing properly for an exam involves many things. Attending all the lectures, regularly reviewing lecture notes, keeping up with assignments, keeping up with suggested readings, and reviewing in a timely manner. There are 3 essential keys to taking exams. Be prepared, be proactive, and don't procrastinate. Being prepared involves establishing and using successful study habits. This means to ensure that you are prepared to take notes in class, you are prepared to take exams, and you are prepared to manage your time in the most effective way. Being a good test taker is dependent on having well-rounded study habits. It is better to be proactive than to be reactive. Staying one step ahead will decrease anxiety and feelings of overwhelm. As a student, you have many responsibilities, and having good organizational skills will allow you to avoid these negative and self-defeating thoughts. It is never a good idea to say, "I will do it tomorrow," unless there is a pressing reason that you can't do it today. The more you leave for tomorrow, the less time you will have to actually get the work done. Procrastination is a symptom that something is wrong with the tasks we have given ourselves, and not an indication of failure. If you aren't procrastinating, then you are being productive. There are 5 basic steps to follow when preparing for an exam. First, find out as much about the exam as possible. Second, collect and organize all exam materials. Third, set up a study schedule. Fourth, decide how you want to study. Lastly, start studying. Now let's look at what's involved in each of these steps. So let's look at step 1, finding out about the exam. What material will it cover? Study time is valuable, so do not waste your time studying material that you are not required to know for the test. Is the exam cumulative? Is it just on the class material? Is the lab material on the exam? These are things you should find out prior to exam day. How long will the exam be? Is it during class time? Will it be the length of the whole class? If it's a brief quiz at the beginning of the class, you won't have to study the same way as you would if it was a longer exam. If you have more than one thing to study for, this can help you to prioritize based on how long each of the exams will be. What percentage of the final grade is it worth? The greater the percentage of your final grade, the greater time you will need to spend studying for the exam. This allows you to manage your time accordingly, and if it's not worth much, it can help you to reduce anxiety if you feel ill-prepared. And is the exam essay, multiple choice, short answer, true, false, or a combination of the above? Knowing the type of questions asked on the exam will enable you to study accordingly. Essay and short answer type of exams require a more thorough understanding of the material than, say, do multiple choice. You have to recall as opposed to being able to use the process of elimination. You'll have to study a little differently. Now let's look at step 2, collecting and organizing all of your exam materials. So what exactly should I organize to maximize my study time? Let's look at the things that you have at the ready. assignments, quizzes, readings, flashcards, and textbooks. You're utilizing everything that you have at your disposal as potential exam material. Notes includes things from class and things from the lab, any notes that you made for yourself out of the textbook. Any assignments that you've handed in and have been given back with marks on them and corrections, those are excellent study tools as they allow you to see what you were getting wrong in the first place. Same with quizzes. Oftentimes we don't get our quizzes back, but if you do, make sure you use them as potential study material for the next exam. Any readings that are from the textbook or any handouts that you've been given, make sure that you have those with you when you're ready to study. Flashcards are those things that you've made once you've completed your notes and you've made lists of potential material that you think you need to study. And of course, your textbook should always be at the ready when you are sitting down to study for an exam. So once I have everything collected, what do I do with it? Check that none of the material is missing. If you missed a class, make sure that you have those notes available to you before you actually sit down to study. Fill in any blank or missing notes before you are actually ready to study. If you are missing something, use the recorded lectures on Blackboard or ask a classmate to help you fill in what's missing. Utilize your instructor during their office hours if there is a chunk of material that you feel you need and that you don't have. Bundle together related groups of information so that you have smaller bundles to study from. This is the most effective step when studying. Trying to look at everything at once is not beneficial, but being able to put it into smaller groups of related material helps you to focus on each group. Divide your bundles into manageable chunks of study material. If you have 5 chunks of material, maybe that can be done over 5 days. It just depends on how you want to manage your time. And if you have been keeping up with studying throughout the semester, then you should be able to concentrate on each bundle until you feel like you have internalized the material. So now let's look at how to set up a study schedule. Your study schedule should start on day 1. At the start of the semester, studying should begin on the first day of class. If you keep up with your notes and your studies from day 1, you will greatly reduce your anxiety about every exam you have to take. You should be doing daily reviews. Material should be reviewed daily to ensure notes are complete for studying. This means taking a few minutes after every class to make sure that your notes are complete and that you didn't miss anything during lecture. You should be doing weekly reviews, reviewing every week to reinforce the material. This helps to move concepts from short-term to long-term memory. The week before the exam, concentrate on the material that you are unsure of. What are you missing from the weekly reviews? The week before the exam is where you are going to do the bulk of your studying. And the day before the exam. Quick review of the material, focusing on the material you feel least comfortable with. Here is where you will test yourself. That day before the exam is the last push to knowing the material. So now I've made a schedule. How do I prioritize and what do I do? You should spend 10 to 15 minutes after each class completing your notes. Do this as close to the end of class while the material is fresh. Then your notes will be complete for when you want to study. Do 1-hour weekly reviews of each subject area to keep the material fresh. 1 hour of review each week will help you to learn the material. Every exposure to your notes increases how much is transferred to long-term memory, and the more you review, the less time you will need to study before the exam. Do major reviews the week before the exam. This is where you will do the bulk of your studying. Look at how many bundles of information you have collected and decide how much time you will need to devote to studying. Divide your material into manageable chunks and then spread that out over many days. Schedule enough study sessions prior to the exam to thoroughly learn all your study packages. Don't try to do too much all at once. Use your day timer to make a to-do list of what you will study and when you will study it. Having a plan will keep you on track. Schedule many short blocks of time rather than long ones. You will retain more information in smaller blocks of time. Being able to concentrate on a small amount of material is much more valuable than trying to learn it all at once. And last, make sure you continue to go to class. Your instructor might review important material prior to the exam date. Don't let yourself fall behind just because you have a test in the near future. So now let's look at step 4, deciding how you want to study. What will work best for me? There are many ways to approach studying. The thing to remember is that by studying differently than you normally would, you increase the chance of retaining the material. Simply reading your notes over and over will not be as beneficial as trying something new. So what can you do differently? Get other people to test you. Give them your study questions and see how much you really know. Having to answer questions without any aids in front of you is a true test of what you have learned. Make and use flashcards. Make 2 piles as you go through them, 1 pile that you don't know and 1 pile that you do, and concentrate on the ones that you don't. If you keep up with making flashcards from the beginning of the semester, when the time comes to study, they are easy and accessible. Try making mind maps. They force you to make connections between the concepts. A mind map requires you to think differently about the material. This is helpful when trying to recall. Use previous exams and assignments as study tools. They are a good gauge of what the questions will look like, especially for midterms and finals. You already have a replica of what to expect, so use them. Talk out loud. Speaking engages a different part of your brain than reading does. Again, this goes back to doing something different than what you normally do. And form a study group. Ask each other questions. The best way to learn something is to have to teach it to someone else. You can often learn best from other people who are learning the same material as yourself. So now let's look at how we could actually start to study. This brief flow chart may be valuable to get you started. Step 1. We start by reading aloud a section of your notes and making up a question that the material answers. Next, cover the material or look away, read the question, and try to answer it. Look back to see if you were correct. Keep repeating this process until you can verbally answer the question. Now write your answer to reinforce the concept or idea you are trying to memorize. Work through your study bundles in the same manner. Finally, test yourself by asking and answering random questions. These steps involve reading, writing, speaking, and paraphrasing. The combination of all of these actions will greatly increase the amount of material that you internalize. It is thought that we remember 90% of what we do, 75% of what we say, and only 20% of what we hear. Listening in class is simply not enough. As a student, taking an active role is the most important step towards being a successful test taker. Now let's look at some strategies to use on test day. What strategies can I use the day of my exam? Be prepared. Eat and dress appropriately. Arrive early and take a moment to relax. Maybe avoid hanging around the others if you feel at all anxious. Listen to last-minute instructions. The instructor may have some important things to tell you before you start writing the exam. Do a memory dump. This means to quickly write down anything you are worried you will forget. This frees you to focus without distraction. Read directions carefully. Plan how to manage your time. Pace yourself. If there's 50 multiple choice questions and the test is 50 minutes long, that means you have 1 minute per question. Make sure you're watching the clock. Look for cues or associations between questions. Sometimes one question can spark a thought about another. Pay attention. Answer every question. Even a guess is better than leaving something blank. Stay focused, stay positive. Take deep breaths and just relax. And last, trust your instincts and answer questions wisely. Your first guess is usually correct. Now let's look at some hints for writing multiple choice exams. Preview the exam to see how many questions there are. Budget your time accordingly. Read each question carefully and fully. Don't skim. You might miss key terms. Circle keywords so that they stand out. What do they mean? What are they telling you to do? This will help you to focus. Watch for words like not, which signals you to think in the negative, and best, which indicates that more than one choice is correct, but one of them is most correct. When asked a question with a negative in it, identify the positives and eliminate them. Then the last option left will be the answer. Cover up the options and try to answer the question before you even look at the selections. If you can't answer without looking, read the stem and each answer individually and decide which one is the right one. Pay attention to each question. Sometimes a previous question will help you to understand and answer a question that you are struggling with. There are clues there, you just have to look for them. And finally, only change your answer if you are certain it is wrong. Trust your gut. Finally, let's look at some hints on how to write essay and short answer exams. Start by carefully reading the directions. Does it say to answer 2 of the following? Maybe you have 7 or 8 selections to choose from. Only do what is asked. Answer the easiest question first. This will give you confidence and it will allow you to relax. Underline or circle the topic and any key terms that limit what is being asked. This will help you to focus. Make sure you know how many parts there are in the question. If you are asked for 3 specific things, and it's an essay type question, you should have at least 5 different paragraphs. Introduction, conclusion, and 1 for each idea. Watch for keywords such as describe, discuss, compare. This will help you to focus when answering the question. They all mean something different, so be aware of what they're asking. Organize your answer. Take a few minutes to do a quick outline to keep yourself on track. Remember to write an introductory and concluding paragraph or statement. Write 1 main point per paragraph and provide sufficient supporting details. Write clearly, double space your work, and watch for spelling mistakes. And last, proofread your answers once you have completed them if time allows. So hopefully this video has given you some helpful hints on being an effective test taker. Try to keep the following in mind. Tests are a way to assign you a grade, not a measure of what kind of student you are. Remember that doing poorly on an exam does not make you a bad student. It just means you got a bad mark on one test. Use this as a learning experience and correct it for the next time. You got this.